Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Scientific Approach. Today I'm going to be watching one part of the Charlie Kirk versus Cambridge student debates. This student is talking about abortion, something that is a hot topic, especially in the U.S. Between whatever candidate you're supporting. I think a lot of people find whoever's position on abortion is a big deal. So I think this is an important conversation.
So thank you for coming, Charlie. My question to you, I'm a medical student, and so I'm going to throw out the big A word. I know you get asked about it a lot, but I want to hear from you what your opinion is on abortion.
Life begins at conception.
But about abortion specifically, why do you think abortion's wrong specifically?
Well, you agree murder is wrong?
I agree. Okay, so this is where we get into the question, right? Because what is it about murder you say is wrong? Like, why is murder wrong?
Well, because it's a human being, not just because it has consciousness or because it's of a certain age, because it's a human.
What is it that gives human being this moral worth?
Not its consciousness necessarily.
I didn't say it's consciousness.
I know that I can imagine it because it is a human being because it has a soul.
And what is this soul? Where does this come from? This idea that it's...
Exactly. Again, the Greeks postulated that it is the entirety of your being. Okay, you guys can laugh. It's true. Every civilization has had a different belief, but agreed upon ethical monotheism, which is the creed of the West and what the birth certificate of my country articulates, is that every human being is more than just matter, it's more than just a clump of cells, but it also has an invisible element to you that will live beyond you.
Fine, so, can you say that comes from the Bible, or where else do you get that from?
Ethical monotheism, which is the creed of the West. And again, the Declaration of Independence mentions God 4 times. The founders were explicitly believed not in a secular morality, but a divinely given one, of at least this idea that there is a God and you are not him. And let me ask you, what is the first stage of human development?
So this is the thing, right? We can take it from the sperm being generated in the father and the oocyte being generated in the mother, right? They fuse at birth, conception, sorry. The only thing that happens at conception is these 2 cells fuse.
Right? No, DNA is created. A zygote.
DNA is not created.
A DNA, no, that's not true. The DNA...
Charlie is very wrong on this. DNA is not created, and the student is going to tell him why.
The DNA coding at the zygote. Hold on, time out. Does a zygote have a unique marker?
Charlie,
does a zygote have a unique marker?
You have to let me speak. You have to
answer it, yes or no. Does a zygote have a unique marker?
Define a unique marker.
Meaning, can you differentiate the DNA coding between the mother and the zygote if you examine it under a deoxyribonucleic acid analysis? Can you?
Only purely because the addition comes from the father.
Oh, so it is something different.
Charlie, DNA is not created. DNA is not created. You have, the father has his own genome, the mother has her own genome. They fuse. This is why you have the same characteristics, similar ones to your mother, similar ones to your father. That's why you have similar characteristics to your siblings. DNA is not created, right? So when you ask me, where does a human being come from? I can say to you, it starts at conception, but all conception is these 2 cells joining, right? But these 2 cells were created, the mother cells were created long before, they were created when she was a fetus.
Okay, so just to be clear about some of the science here, this student is completely correct. The mother has half of the DNA and the father has the other half of the DNA they combine during fertilization. That's it. There's nothing new that is created. When the cells multiply, the DNA is replicated. You're not producing a completely new set of DNA each time.
So there's none of this DNA.
I guess I should specify you're not creating a completely new, different set of DNA. It's all the same DNA in the cells
being produced, right? So we can't establish. The only thing that happens at conception is these 2 cells fuse. Now this idea that means that for some reason suddenly that moral worth comes in, but it wasn't there before when you had these 2 cells who had half the DNA. But suddenly there's a
correct. Yes, something magical happens at that.
It's not magical, Charlie. We know about this.
Well, hold on.
Charlie.
Time out. Hold on.
Charlie, I promise you, I'm not trying to score points. I'm not trying to score points on you. This is genuine.
We call it the miracle of life for a reason. We've not been able to yet replicate human life development outside of the womb.
We call it the miracle of life because yes, it's something beautiful, the ability to form a new...
Magical.
It's not... You say magical as in, it's beautiful, it's an incredible thing that happens, of course. But it's not incredible in the sense we don't know what's going on. There's no new DNA coming out of nowhere.
Hold on, but time out. Isn't there a separate DNA, though, than the mother? Like,
Yes, from the father.
okay, yes, but it's not the father's DNA either. A new coding is created.
Wrong.
You are a blend of the two. And so when did your life begin?
Okay, so
When did your
my
life
life. I mean, again, this comes from what you define as where life starts. You can say life starts at conception, but I'm telling you, I believe that's just an arbitrary point, right? That's just the moment these two cells fuse. Now, you say about this mother thing. So the way DNA is arranged in a cell is it's arranged in chromosomes. Chromosomes are paired up, so you have one from the mother, one from the father, typically, in a healthy individual, right? Now, you can take those maternal chromosomes out and you can find that this is who the person's mother is, and you can do the same with the father. Now, the reason you are different to your mother and father is because some of those chromosomes express genes that are different from each other, and so those genes interact, and that's what gives rise to you, right? But there's no space for any kind of moral framework to come into that until you consider that a human being is capable of consciousness and of suffering. But if you take that out of the equation, the fact that these two DNA, whatever they call molecules, right? These two DNA molecules are fusing, that does not suddenly flip a switch that attributes moral worth to that individual. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not trying to score points. I'm trying to understand.
By what moral standard do you believe that?
I believe that if an individual is capable of suffering, then it's wrong. Now, can I explain my opinion on abortion, just so you can understand? I would agree, as many reasonable people would, that at 9 months, it's unreasonable to expect someone to get an abortion, right? Unless you have some extreme circumstances. But for an elective abortion seems a bit radical to me. But it also seems radical to say that a woman who has just, the cells have just fused, to deny her of an abortion also seems wrong to me. Because that zygote is not capable of suffering, as far as we know.
So by what moral standard? Is that just your opinion? Where did you get that moral standard from?
Because suffering is a bad thing. We all know suffering is a bad thing. That's an objective fact, right?
Hold on. So you do believe in objective morality.
I believe that suffering is an objectively negative
So if you can't feel it, is it okay?
What do you mean if you can't?
You can't feel the pain, is it okay to inflict the pain?
In the sense that if no one's suffering from it, if you have a scenario where nobody is suffering from something, then yes, of course. Something is only a moral question if it affects someone's well-being.
Okay, so I want to pause here because we have certainly gotten to the crux of the argument of the differences in their positions. Charlie earlier stated that he values more of what he calls the soul, which spontaneously is created at conception when the egg and the sperm when the egg gets fertilized by the sperm, and the student on the right is saying that he values suffering. So depending on the level of suffering, okay, is they're going to be more suffering if we do this, or is there going to be more suffering if we do that? They have moral differences. They will never come to an agreement, so they need to agree to disagree on that position. Now comes the question with, is there a position that we can take that would satisfy both sides? Okay, where Charlie can make, Charlie and his wife in whatever situation, they can make decisions however they would like to. And this student on the right, if he was with a wife and they're having a kid or whatever, and they had questions about abortion, they can make their own decisions. Is there an option that does that? Yes, it's called pro-choice. If you're pro-choice, that means you talk to medical doctors for any issues that come up, and you can decide what you want to do. You do not have to go through abortions. You are not forced to. On the opposite side, you're also not forced to not do an abortion. If you don't want to do an abortion, you don't have to. If that is what your moral position is, fine. You don't have to do an abortion. You can stick to your morals. And Charlie in the past has said, okay, if my daughter gets raped or whatever, she's having the baby. If that's your position, then you are allowed to have that choice in with pro-choice. Same if this person on the right, if the student on the right had a mother who's having a child and they did want to have an abortion, they have that option. So even with these people disagreeing morally, which will never change, there is a position that satisfies both sides. And since morality is subjective to a degree, or I guess I shouldn't say to a degree. Morality is subjective to a degree. Then there shouldn't be any hesitation for pro-choice, in my opinion. There's a lot more to discuss about abortion because it's not black and white. I definitely have more to add to this conversation. They go a little bit off topic in these next few minutes, but with this brief video, I would love to open this up to anyone else who is open to talking about abortion. If you watched until the end here, like, comment, subscribe if you're up to talking about it. Let me know in the comments. We can set something up because I definitely think there's more to talk about. But I think the crux of abortion is that what I just said. Even though there are moral disagreements, there is a choice that satisfies both sides. Thank you for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe.